They vanished from a quiet trailer, and 100 small details suddenly became everything. Receipts, camera clips, a shredded blanket, a late-night phone call. If you want to stay on top of every confirmed update in the Lily and Jack case, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell now. We'll post verified developments as soon as they're released. Court documents newly disclosed to the public give us a window into the days before the children disappeared, and into the early work detectives did to check the family's movements and statements. Those records summarize 5 formal interviews a mother, Malia Brooks Murray, gave to RCMP investigators. In her first recorded interview, she described Daniel Martell as an involved partner, someone who helped when she felt overwhelmed and who had a voice that the children listened to. She told police that there was no physical discipline in the home. Those are basic facts. But in a case where so little physical evidence is immediately obvious, they matter. They shape investigators' understanding of household dynamics and help frame what questions detectives must ask next. A family portrait of routine errands and late nights grows oddly heavy when you realize each stop and timestamp can confirm or contradict someone's memory. The documents trace ordinary seeming activity. Laundry at a grandmother's house, a trip to get a license plate, a gas stop where a vape was purchased, grocery shopping, and a late return home. On the afternoon of May 1st, the family was seen on surveillance footage in New Glasgow. Later that night, Brooks Murray initially told police she put the children to bed at 9 p.m., then revised that to 10 p.m. The difference between those two times is not a trivial quibble in police work. It changes the window investigators must reconstruct and cross-check. When families move and time shift happen, detectives lean on objective markers. Receipts, camera timestamps, phone pings. In this case, police aggressively sought those markers, pulling records from cameras at a nearby Dollarama and requesting footage at a toll plaza on the Trans-Canada Highway, among other locations. They asked for cell phone, GPS, and banking data to build a timeline that could either corroborate or contradict witness statements. One of the early twists was a late-night call from Brooks Murray to RCMP just after midnight on May 3rd, reporting that the children's biological father, Cody Sullivan, might have taken the kids to New Brunswick. Police arrived at Sullivan's home at 2:50 a.m. He told them he had not seen the children in 3 years and confirmed they were not with him. That led investigators to pull footage from a broad time window, from May 1st at 2:25 p.m. to the early hours of May 3rd, including images from a key stretch of highway and from regional cameras, to be sure the children hadn't left the province. The court filings show RCMP were methodical about verifying each possible route, because when a child is missing, the single most urgent question is, did they leave the region? The Dollarama footage did show Lily and Jack with family on the afternoon before they vanished, which anchored the timeline of public sighting. Beyond that, police have described the video collection and review as voluminous, and they're prioritizing what is most likely to be useful. Martell has said he had no idea Brooks Murray made that midnight call. He describes that first night as a blur of exhaustion. He told reporters that after hours of searching, he fell asleep early, saying he passed out cold around 9:09 p.m. It's an image that captures the confusion and fatigue of people who suddenly find themselves searching for children in the dark. Brooks Murray, by contrast, told police she slept only between roughly 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the hours after the children were first noticed missing, and that she had been awake most of the night. Those different accounts of who was awake and when are not just family gossip. They are central to investigators trying to nail down windows of opportunity. Human memory under stress is notoriously unreliable. Times blur. People misremember whether a light was on, whether a door was closed, whether a voice was heard. That's why police focus on hard data whenever possible. Camera timestamps, transaction logs, and recorded interviews that can be compared and interrogated for inconsistency. Investigators were quick to pursue many of those hard data points. Court filings show the RCMP sought a range of record access orders, looking to extract historical location data from phones and devices, to gather call logs and chat records, and to review banking transactions that could confirm who was where at any given time. The logic is straightforward. An unambiguous timestamp can correct a shaky memory and either strengthen an account or reveal a contradiction that needs further explanation. That is how the Dollarama sighting became a hinge moment, confirming that the children were publicly visible with family the day before creates an outer edge of the timeline and helps rule out certain theories. For example, that they had been taken days earlier. It doesn't answer what happened between that afternoon and the morning of May 2nd, but it does narrow the window investigators must scrutinize. Physical evidence recovered from search efforts has been limited but potentially important. Relatives found a pink blanket down the road from the home on the day the children were reported missing. A piece of the same blanket was later retrieved from a garbage bag at the end of the family's driveway. Brooks Murray told investigators the blanket belonged to Lily, a small doll blanket she sometimes dragged around, but said she had decided she no longer wanted it and had discarded it about a week earlier. Martell's account was that he had used the blanket to stop a draft in the door and that it had already been partially torn when he put it up. The apparent same blanket appearing both in a bin and down a road raised immediate questions for investigators. How did it move? Who handled it when? And could any traces on a fabric be linked to a time or place? Forensic examination can sometimes answer those questions, but results take time and are not always conclusive. In this case, the blanket was seized and photographs were taken. RCMP said the item is subject to forensic testing. A boot print also drew investigators' attention. An impression was cast from a track on a pipeline trail near the search area and sent to the lab. One investigator later wrote that Lily's boot size was consistent with the print found on that trail. That alignment, a footwear size matching an impression, is one piece of physical correspondence that can move an investigation forward, but it remains only one piece. Tread patterns, where marks and the possibility of multiple footwear sources complicate simple conclusions. Footwear impressions can be useful when matched to particular shoes or when their path suggests a movement direction, but they must be integrated with other evidence to form a coherent picture of events. The RCMP has said repeatedly that at certain points they did not have reasonable grounds to declare the case criminal. That legal distinction matters. It influences the resources brought to bear and procedural steps police must follow. Still, investigators have taken steps normal in any missing child inquiry where causes are unclear. They interviewed close relatives and acquaintances, administered polygraph tests to some family members, and requested sweeping access to electronic records to check for lead-generating patterns. Thousands of video files and hundreds of public tips have come in, and the RCMP said those items are being evaluated and prioritized by major crimes investigators. Sorting through that volume, verifying timestamps, ensuring footage is original and untampered, and cross-referencing tips is painstaking work that can feel agonizingly slow to a community that wants answers now. The differences in accounts between family members about when children were put to bed, who was awake, and who called police, and at what time, have been a focal point of public attention and speculation. It is important to remember that discrepancies do not automatically mean wrongdoing. People under duress remember events in shards. Sleep deprivation, trauma, and the stress of suddenly searching for missing children create conditions where memory is unreliable. That said, inconsistencies do demand rigorous follow-up. They create nodes where investigators must dig deeper. Re-interviewing witnesses, checking digital metadata, reviewing surveillance tapes that can be objectively dated. That is precisely what the RCMP has done in this investigation. Public reaction has been intense and often polarized. People who live in the area and those watching online have asked the same hard questions investigators must answer. Why were family members not ruled out publicly in the early days? Why was there no Amber Alert? Did police search every likely spot quickly enough? Part of the answer lies in legal thresholds and police procedure. Some part it lies in the practical realities of searching dense rural terrain where time and weather erode evidence. The RCMP's decision-making around alerts and public statements follows legal standards. For example, an Amber Alert requires specific criteria that had not initially been met. But those technicalities are of little consolation to a community desperate for action. What matters now, and what investigators continue to stress publicly, is that they are treating every tip seriously and using all available tools, including interjurisdictional cooperation and technological resources. Volunteers and neighbors have played an enormous role. In the hours and days after the disappearance, more than 100 trained volunteers joined police searches. Community vigils and coordinated canvassing efforts brought daily energy back to the woods and roads. Local people know the back roads, seasonal trails, and hidden spots that outsiders might miss. And when that local knowledge is combined with police coordination, it can be effective. The RCMP has repeatedly urged people with dash cam footage, security camera files, or eyewitness observations to turn those materials into official channels rather than posting them online. The original files with metadata are what investigators need to verify a lead. As weeks pass with limited public breakthroughs, family members and neighbors are left in a slow-motion agony of uncertainty. Some relatives have publicly said they do not believe the children are in the woods and have urged investigators to keep widening the scope. Others have raised questions about prior interactions with child protection services and whether those records might hold clues. Those are legitimate lines of public inquiry, and investigators told the courts they had sought various records and that the investigation remains active on multiple fronts. What should the public do now? If you have any footage, no matter how grainy, keep the original file and contact investigators. Compressed social uploads lose the metadata that proves when and where a clip was recorded. If you remember an odd vehicle, a plate, or a passing moment that once seemed insignificant, report it. Small, verifiable details can change an investigation. And a note of caution. Avoid amplifying unverified rumors on social media. Speculative posts can muddy the waters and harm real investigation work. Court documents and police statements give us facts, timestamps, and pieces of physical evidence. They don't yet tell us the full story, but they do give investigators a pattern to test. The days before May 2nd, the errands, the Dollarama sighting, the late-night timeline shifts, the blanket fragments, the pipeline boot impression, are now the backbone of formal inquiry that will need more corroboration before it yields decisive answers. For the family, time is a cruel companion. For the investigation, time is the element the team is racing to buy by methodically testing every lead. This report is not the final word. It is a step in a slow, careful process that relies on science, documents, and crucially, public help. If you're watching and you want to do something real, check your video files, look again at dates on receipts, and report anything that might matter to the RCMP tip lines. For those following closely, subscribe and turn on notifications so you receive verified updates as they're confirmed. Please like and share responsibly. Spotlight the case in ways that help, not haze it with rumor. The disappearance of Lily and Jack is a wound in a small community and a puzzle for investigators. The newly released statements and records sharpen some edges of the timeline and raise new questions. They also show the work ahead is precise, patient, and procedural. The facts we do have: video of the children the day before, family movement through errands and late nights, a blanket found in 2 places, a boot impression on a pipeline trail, and multiple different accounts of who was awake and when are the starting points investigators must follow to their conclusion. Keep watching, keep looking, and if you have something concrete to share, give it to the RCMP. Time matters, evidence matters, and every careful lead brings a chance, however small, of finding answers for Lily and Jack and the family waiting for them.